Okay, so today we're going to do on function notation, the first part of completing IGCSE functions. Now, let's look at this question. Fx equals to 2x plus 6. Find the value of f3. Now, f3, what you're supposed to do, this number 3, you're going to substitute inside this equation. Which means, this you will get fx is given as 2x plus 6. So f3 would be the number 3, you're going to substitute inside this equation. So 2 bracket 3 plus 6. Remember, whenever you're substituting a number into the equation, just put it in a bracket, which means the final answer of f3 you will get is 12. Now for the second part, they said what will the value of f10 be? So this 10 you can substitute inside this equation. So if the question has already given you fx equals to 2x plus 6, so f10 would equals to 2 bracket 10 plus 6. So here you will get the answer to be as 26. That is the value of f10. Now for the third one, they say, okay, what is f1 over 2 means? So this 1 over 2 you can substitute inside this equation. So question already gave you fx equals to 2x plus 6, which means f1 over 2 will equals to 2 bracket 1 over 2 plus 6. And here you can just simplify the fraction by getting rid of the 2. And here you will get your answer to be as 7. So f1 over 2 means 7. Now one thing you must know in all this tree is that if let's say the first usually they'll give you a function, an equation of the function like this. And then they will ask you to find what is f3 or f10 or f1 over 2. All these numbers these numbers are kind of replacing the x value here. So that means all these numbers here you have to put inside this equation. Wherever you find x, you have to substitute the numbers. So that's how the way you solve these type of questions. So these are very common ones that comes out for your examinations. Now for the second one, you are given gx is this, find the value of g0. So it's the same thing, the number 0 here, I'm going to substitute wherever I can find x in this equation. So question already gave me gx, which is x squared plus 1 over 2. So g0, that means wherever I've got x, I can substitute the number 0 inside. I will get 0 squared plus 1 over 2. Now 0 square is definitely 0. So here 0 plus 1 is 1. So my final answer I'll just get 1 over 2. This is the value of g0. Now what about g10? So I already have the same equation, which is gx, which is x squared plus 1 over 2. So g10 would equivalent to whatever there's x, I'm going to substitute the 10 inside the x. So here I would get 10 squared plus 1 over 2. Alright. Here, once I do this, 10 squared is 100 plus 1 over 2. Alright, I'm still solving it, which means my final answer would be 101 over 2. And here you can get either 50.5 or your final answer you can put as 101 over 2. Or you can write it in decimal 50.5. It doesn't matter. So again, what I'm trying to do is wherever the 0 or the 10 is, I'm just substituting inside this equation here. Now here g2. So g2 meaning I have my equation gx, which is x squared plus 1 over 2. So g negative 2 means whatever the negative 2 is, wherever got x here, I'm going to substitute negative 2 inside. So negative 2 square plus 1 over 2. Now one thing that I would like to highlight that most students they do mistake for this kind of question is that they do not, when they substitute their values inside x, they do not put in a bracket. For example, the same question, most students will do it like that. Now these you will get a wrong answer because the square here, when you put it in a calculator, you will just assume that the square is for 2, not for negative 2. So how do you tell your calculator that, hey, the square here is not only for 2 but for negative 2 is when you put a bracket. Alright, so just remember to put your bracket whenever you are substituting, not only for functions, for any questions. So once I'm doing this, and here you can just solve it. Here you will get a 4 plus 1 over 2, and here your final answer you should get is 5 over 2. Alright, so these questions are the same as the first ones. Alright, I'm just substituting the value of the numbers inside the equation, nothing else. I'm just substituting here the value of these numbers inside the equation here, like this. Alright, let me just put it up. Yep, like this. Like here G0, the 0 I'm just substituting inside the X. G10, the 10 I'm just substituting inside this main equation. Negative 2, so this negative 2 I'm just substituting wherever I see X, I'm just going to substitute. That's how I find the value. Now, let's look at the second question. So, given that hx equals to x plus 1 over x minus 1, find the value of h3, h negative 1 and h1, 1 over 2. So again, now you see there's something different written about here. Another way I prefer to write this equation, it would be just like that. hx equals to x plus 1 over x minus 1. Instead of writing an arrow, it's just another way of writing it. I prefer to write an equation form. Okay? So h3, again h3 meaning this number 3, I'm going to substitute inside this equation. So h3 would be wherever there is x, I'm going to substitute the 3 inside. So here I'll get 3 plus 1 over 3 minus 1. So here I would get 4 over 2 h3, which means the value of h3 here would become 2. That's it. This is simplified. Alright. And the second part, I have to substitute h negative 1. So h negative 1, I'm going to substitute inside this equation. So negative 1 plus 1 over negative 1 minus 1. Alright. I do not need to write a bracket here. After all, this is quite simple. So negative 1 plus 1, obviously you get 0. Over negative 1, you would get negative 2. So any number that 0 divided by negative 2, you would get your answer to become as 0. Alright, you can check this out in your calculator. 0 divided by negative 2, you'll get your answer as 0. So h negative 2 inside this equation means you will get 0. Alright. So for C, I have h 1 over 2. Now this is basically a proper fraction. I would prefer to change it into improper. Alright, so it's better you change it into improper. Change it to improper. Alright, so once I change this to improper, we know this one we have to times. So 1 times 2 is 2, and then the answer you got a plus here. So 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So that means here I'm finding the answer of 3 over 2. I'm just changing this fraction into an improper fraction. So h 3 over 2, which means whatever the x value is, I'm going to substitute 3 over 2 inside. So 3 over 2 plus 1 over 3 over 2 minus 1. Now this one you can use your calculators to solve it. 3 over 2 plus 1, you would get 5 over 2 over, and the bottom one, if you say 3 over 2 minus 1, you would get the answer 1 over 2. Alright, so h 3 over 2. Okay, so far you solve this separately, you get 5 over 2. You solve the bottom one, you get 1 over 2. And then what happens once you've resolved the top and the bottom, and then this whole thing you can simplify it by just going through your calculator. 5 over 2 divide by 1 over 2. Alright, and here the answer you'll get is 5. You can just put this whole thing in your calculator. 5 over 2 divide, this means divide by 1 over 2, and you will get your answer as 5. So this is how we solve. So h 3 over 2, or in other words h 1 over 2, the answer is 5. h negative 2, the answer I'll get 0. And once I put h3 into this function, I'll get the answer 2. Alright, so that is all about substitution. So the first part of function notation is how do you substitute the values inside your equations here. Now the next part is start getting a bit more complicated. So once you're already familiar with how to substitute, the next part would be, for example, I have this question. If f of a is 20, what is the value of a? Now, try to imagine this thing, alright? Now, imagine what we did at the top here. H of 3 is 2, correct, for this one. So that means wherever I substitute the 3 value inside this function here, I will get my answer to be as 2. Alright, that's what it means. So whenever I substitute the 3 value inside this function, alright, I will get my answer 2. So just by looking at that theory, so whenever I substitute my a value inside this equation, I will get my answer 20. That's what you're supposed to understand. So to find the value of a, I know when I substitute a inside this equation, I will get my answer 20. That's what the question is trying to say. So I know that 2, whenever I substitute a inside the x, which means I put a here plus 5, I will get my answer as 20. Alright? So from you must know how to make this equation. Once you already know how to make this, and then you just have to break the bracket. Here you get 2a plus 5 equals to 20. So 2a equals to 15. So a would be 15 over 2, and this one you can write as 15 over 2, or you can simplify it or you can write it in fraction, yeah, 7.5. Okay, so this is what the question says. It's very important for you to understand. Now, whenever the question says if a certain function equals to a certain number, or equals to something, so this is the function. So whenever you put this a value, or previously, for example, if to understand better, for example, if I have like, what if f of 3 equals to, for example, 20? So, okay, maybe this is not actual the question, sorry. Alright, so just come back to this, alright? So, if f of a equals to 20, that means whenever you substitute a inside this equation, you will get your answer to be as 20. So for example, if a value here is 15 over 2, now let's try to check whether do I still get 20 or not. So what if a value now, what if f of 15 over 2? Okay, what answer do you get? How do you find f 15 over 2 now? We know f of x is 2x plus 5, right? So which means here, 2 bracket 15 over 2 plus 5, alright? And when you do that, you'll get 15 plus 5, which you'll get here is 20. So from here you see, if f 15 over 12 or 7.5, whatever value you put inside, you will get 20. So this, I've already checked that, hey, my A answer is correct. Because f of A, which means f of 15 over 2, when I substitute inside here, I do get 20. So again, if the question asks me how to find A, this A value, assume A is just a number that you're substituting inside this equation like what we did previously. Alright, whatever number is it, we are substituting into that equation, and it should equals to 20. It should equals to 20. So you make your equation here, and then you just solve it to find A. That's it. Now let's look at the second. If f of b is 0, what is the value of b? So this is the second part of the question. I already have, the main question is f of x equals to 2x plus 5. Question gives me for b if f of b equals to 0. So I already know f of x, which is equals to 2x plus 5. Now question asks me, if f of b equals to 0, what's the value of b? So that means f of b equals to 0. Then what will b be? If I notice b is, again, I'm going to just substitute the b value into this equation, and this equation will equals to 0. Alright, so which means 2 bracket b plus 5 equals to 0. Alright, and once this is there, I will get 2b plus 5 equals to 0, 2b equals to negative 5, and b I would get negative 5 over 2. So this is the value of b. Simple as that. Whenever you have if f of b equals to 0, this b value you're just going to put back into the equation. Wherever the x is, you can put the b and put this equation equals to 0. And you should be able to solve a question like this. Now, the next one, g of x equals to square root x plus 3. Find the value of g33. Again, I have to just find what is g33. So g33 equals to, wherever there is x here, I'm going to substitute 33 inside. So wherever there's x, I'm going to substitute the 33 inside. So which means here I get 33 plus 3. And here I would get square root 66. So square root of 66, you should get your answer to be as 8.124. You can put your answer as 2 or 3 decimal places. This is the value of g33, as simple as that. Alright, so even though there's a square root, there's nothing to be concerned about. Now, for the value of b, if ga equals to 10, find the value of a. So this is the same question like the ones we did here. Alright, so I already have gx equals to square root x plus 3. Question already gave me gx equals to square root x plus 3. This is just the continuation of the question above. So if ga equals to 10, find the value of a. That means this ga, this a, I'm going to put inside here. Alright, and this equation should equals to 10. So which means here I'm going to do as square root, wherever there's x, I'm going to substitute the a inside, equals to 10. Alright, I have to make this expression. Now what gets rid of a square root is a square, so I'm going to square both sides. Alright, and this will destroy it. So here I would get a plus 3 equals to 100. A equals to 100 minus 3. So a, I would get the answer to be as 97. This should be the value of a. Alright, this is how we find it. Now let's go to another example. Now fx equals to 2x minus 8 and gx equals to 10 minus x. What is the value of x for which fx equals to gx? So you must understand this. They're telling you what will x be when this fx equation equals to this gx equation. So let's write our equation. Fx equation is what? 2x minus 8 equals to, what is gx equation? Gx equation is 10 minus x. So in here what you have to do, you just have to rearrange, and to make x as a subject, you just have to find what x is. So I'm just going to rearrange this. 2x plus x equals to 10 plus 8. So 3x equals to 18. So x would equals to 6. That's it. As simple as that. So whenever they tell you one equation equals to another equation, and then they ask you to find the value of x, or whatever alphabet they ask you to find, you just have to put the x equation equals to the g equation, like how I did. Alright, this one equals to this, rearrange, solve it, and find the value of x here. And that's it. This should be solved. Now, for let's look at this question. So I have hx equals to this and kx equals to this. Find the value of h6. So this is quite simple. h6 would be wherever the x value is in hx, I'm just going to substitute the value of 6 inside. So I'll get 12 bracket over 6 plus 1. This I could simplify. I would get 1 and 2. So I'll just get 2 plus 1, h of 6. And here my answer h of 6 I would get is 3. Alright, as simple as that. I'm just substituting the 6 inside this equation. So for b, find the value of k negative 1. Again, negative 1, I'm just going to substitute inside this equation. So k negative 1 equals to 2 negative 1 minus 1. Now, you see here the power is x, so that's why my negative 1 I put it at the top. But if you know your laws of indices, when your power is negative 1, another way to write this, you could also write it as 1 over 2 power 1. Alright? Because when you have a number which has a power of a negative, in laws of indices, it says this number has to be at the bottom of the fraction, and the power would be at the bottom. So since this is power negative 1, when it comes to the bottom, you'll get power 1 minus 1. Alright, so this one, you can just use your calculator, 1 over 2 minus 1, and you would get your answer to be as negative 1 over 2. This would be your final answer, as k negative 1. Alright, this would be your final answer. So for A and B is pretty simple. I am just substituting the values of this number inside this equation. Now for C, solve the equation where hx equals to k3. Now I know what is my hx here. Hx here is 12 over x plus 1. So I already know what is my hx, which is 12 over x plus 1 equals to, I don't know what is k3, but I know what is kx. So let me just find what is k3 first. So to find this one, what am I going to do is, I know kx is 2 over x minus 1. Alright, this is the equation for kx, which means k3 would be 2 over 3 minus 1. I know 2 over 3 is 8 minus 1, so here I'll get 7. So I know the value of k3 is 7. So which means this one, instead of putting k3, I can just write, I already know k3 is 7, so this one I can just write equals to 7, because I already find out what's the value of k3. Okay, so in here, again, I'm just going to solve it like normal. 12 over x would be 7 minus 1. Alright, I'm just solving this. So here, 12 over x would become 6. Alright, and here once you solve it, 12 equals to 6x, which means x would be 12 divided by 6, which means here x equals to 2. Alright, this is just basic algebra. You should be able to solve it. And this is my answer. Now again, there is something different with this question and the question here. In this question, they said me this equation is equals to an equation. Alright, so this is why I put equation equals to equation. But for this question, they tell me, hey, this equation equals to k3. Now k3 is not really an equation. 3 is really a number. So basically this number, what you have to do before you even put the equation of 2 power x minus 1 inside, you try to find what is the value of k3. So that's what I did. Once I find the value of k3, which is 7, so that's when I do 12 over x plus 1 equals to 7. As simple as that. Now for the D part, which is the last part, solve the equation kx equals to h12. Now kx is an equation, right? So from what I know, the equation of kx was 2 bracket x, 2 power x minus 1 equals to h12. Now I don't know what is h12, but I know my equation of h12. I know my equation of hx is 12 over x plus 1. So to solve this, what I will do, I know it h of x is 12 over x plus 1. So h of negative 12 will be 12 over negative 12 plus 1. So which means here I would get, here would be negative 1 plus 1, which means here my answer I will get is 0. Once you try to solve this, you will get 0. So which means here h negative 12 is 0. Alright. So now what all I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to solve it. 2 power x equals to 1. Alright. So in here, once you do this, now this uses the laws of indices also. If let's say you want to find your power, your base needs to be the same. So I must know that what 2 to the power of what do I get? 1. Alright, that's what you must know. So 2x equals to 2 to the power of 0. I know 2 to the power of 0, I will get 1. Any number to the power of 0, I'll get 1. And I need to make the base to be 2. Your base need to be the same in order for you to compare your powers. Alright, so this is just under laws of indices. If let's say you guys are confused on this, please refer to your indices. So I know 2 to the power of 0, I get 1. So which means in here I can conclude that x would equals to 0. If my base is the same, I can compare my powers. Alright, if my base is the same, which means my power should be the same. Hence, here I've already found the value of x equals to 0. So this is basically the first part of IGCSE functions, alright. If you don't understand, you can go through again the video quickly, and at the same time, in the description there is a link where you can try out some questions, and solutions are also provided for that. And last but not least, please subscribe to Maths Help to ease your maths. Thank you.